Kimi Antonelli is the most hyped driver in Formula One for a long time. But does he live up to that hype? With a full year behind him, we can now analyze his numbers and see how he compares to teammate George Russell to make a decision of whether he was overhyped or whether he really was as special as they said he might be. Looking at qualifying, I think it's fair to say that even though Antonelli had his moments, over the course of the year, he was pretty convincingly beaten by George Russell. Kimi Antonelli won only 5 sessions compared to George Russell's 25, which is one of the largest gaps on the grid. Now, some context I think is important. You look at this table, and you might be forgiven for thinking that Kimi Antonelli is a failed experiment, or thinking that Kimi Antonelli is just simply not good enough as a rookie. And I mean, we've seen guys with this kind of qualifying record lose their seats as rookies in years gone by. But if that's the opinion you have, I know that you haven't been paying attention. When a new rookie comes into Formula One, and especially when that rookie is being evaluated to see whether they are not only a driver who can produce solid results, but potentially someone who can fight for championships in the future, what you tend to look for is less about consistency and more about little sparks of sheer pace. A well-known adage in Formula One is that you can fix mistakes, but you can't fix slow pace. I mean, just look at Max Verstappen. We all remember that Max used to be called Crash Stappen for a good reason. He had a mistake in him. You know, he was overly aggressive. He made too many mistakes. He crashed too many times, but the pace was there. And what happened over time? He ironed out those mistakes and the pace was there. It only continued to improve. And now, years later, we talk about Max being potentially one of the greatest of all time. And does Kimi Antonelli have the pace? I think so. I mean, he took his sprint pole in Miami, which was already super impressive. That was really early in the season. But then again, in Sao Paulo, he got his front row start in the sprint. And for a rookie, that's really impressive. It's true that he was destroyed by George over the course of the year. That's definitely true. But you don't nab a pole position if you don't have that special something, you know? To beat 20 other drivers, including some of the best, you know, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, his own teammate, he beat these guys to unreal positions over the course of the year, just a handful of times. And I think it shows that when the stars align for Antonelli, the pace over a single lap is really there. It's there for him. Race pace is somewhat a similar story. If we look at the Christmas tree, you'll see that George Russell pretty comprehensively beat Antonelli over the course of the year. Now again, this is kind of similar to the Carlos Sainz Alex Albon video from last time. Kimi did seem to find a little bit more pace in the second half of the year, which is what you would expect from a rookie. Round 15, 17, 19, and 23, he was faster than George on the road in race pace over the course of an entire race. And George Russell, by the way, can we just give that some context too? George Russell, I have said many times on this channel, I rate as one of the best drivers on the grid. I think he's probably top 3, top 4 best drivers right now, and he's in the form of his life. George Russell's previous year, 2024, we all said was his best year ever, and only to follow that up with an even better year in 2025. I think that George deserves all the praise in the world. He is driving like an absolute beast at the moment. And to put a rookie up against that and have him still be able to produce some breakout performances, some really impressive performances where he beats George on occasion, I think is something to be praised. So yes, looking at the year-end numbers, it doesn't look great. You know, Kimi Antonelli is 4.5 tenths off of George per lap over the course of the entire season's average lap, which is a big gap. I think it's one of the biggest gaps on the grid. Obviously, it's not a Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda level gap, but alongside the more regular teammate pairings, it is a really large gap. And the qualifying too, it's a big gap. 5 sessions to 25, it's large. And I think the expectation that Toto set at the beginning of the year about how Kimi Antonelli was going to be the next big thing, he kind of overhyped it a little bit. And not to say that Kimi isn't potentially going to be the next big thing. You know, we go into a new regulation cycle now, and it's going to be an engine formula again. People are already talking about how Mercedes is potentially going to be the quickest team yet again. But yes, numbers like these are why Kimi Antonelli, for me, was not really in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. I don't think he jumped out of the blocks quite as quickly as Oliver Behrman or Isaac Hadjar, who I think gave better performances over the course of the entire year in the machinery that they had. But I have certainly seen enough from Kimi Antonelli for me to conclude that he really will be a potential star of the future. And I don't think that's a controversial opinion at all. I think Formula One fans, by and large, have been trained to be able to spot those diamonds. We have been able to see over the course of many years that if someone is capable of putting in an all-star, all-timer performance just once or twice in those rookie years, it generally is a sign of good things to come. So I'm hopeful for the future. I like Kimi Antonelli. I like George Russell, which I know he doesn't have too many fans, but I like him. And I like Mercedes. I've sort of done a big turnaround on Mercedes, on Toto Wolff, on the way I feel about them. And I'm hoping the best for them. I don't want them to dominate in 2026. Let me be clear about that. I'm hoping that it is not just the two Mercedes cars 30 seconds up the road every race. But if they end up winning the constructors, if one of these two drivers ends up winning the championship, I think I'll be really happy with that result. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy New Year.